Well, Salk scientists have been awarded more than $1 million to continue their studying of brain aging and dementia. And joining us now is Professor John Reynolds, lead researcher of the grant. Professor, good to talk with you again.
Good to see you, Ginger.
Well, congratulations, first of all, on this grant. Can you give us a little overview what this exactly is going to be used for?
Yeah, so this is a research focused on understanding the #1 risk factor for Alzheimer's disease, which is aging. We want to understand what it is in the aging brain that predisposes us to Alzheimer's disease so that we can understand the disease better and hopefully work towards a cure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we've talked about this often. I think it's very intriguing because trying to study the brain, I mean, granted, we don't know even a smidge of what there is to learn about the brain, and yet we know that one of the greatest risk factors is aging. But do we know that correlation?
Well, we are trying to understand the mechanisms, and as a neuroscientist, I can tell you this is one of the most exciting times in neuroscience. The tools that have been developed over the past decade and in the past few years that we're going to be bringing to bear in this project are just amazing, and they really open up a new way of looking at the disease.
When you say the tools, is that as far as the discovery or what we're learning about it, or ways to train the brain in order to not get to that aging process?
Well, really, it's the tools that we can use to study the brain and the way that we're thinking about the problem. So the main source, the brain, your brain tissue, uses energy at a rate of about 10 times the speed of the rest of your body. It has a huge energy budget, and that is because it's active. It transmits information in the form of signals that are conveyed by synapses. And the energy that is generated by the brain to do that is through mitochondria, which are sort of the powerhouse of the cell. And so our theory is that that as mitochondria age, they become less efficient at producing the energy that funds the brain. And this is the first step in a cascade of events that ultimately lead to Alzheimer's and dementia.
So your brain uses 10 times the amount of energy for the rest of your body. That's incredible. So the amount of times my mom said, use your brain, she wasn't kidding.
Absolutely. And we have new ways of approaching this problem. So for example, one of the key collaborators in the project is Carol Marchetto at UCSD and Rusty Gage here at the Salk. And they have developed an approach in which we can take skin cells and we can use a series of changes to transform them into neurons in a dish. And we can then study those neurons in their gene expression patterns, and also using very advanced forms of microscopy and imaging that are possible through the Weight Advanced Imaging Core here at Salk. We can visualize these mitochondria as they do their job.
Oh, that's so interesting, because that's one of the problems you run up against. You can't study a brain of a living person, but you're saying you can use skin cells to actually see what the brain is doing?
That's right. We can take skin cells and transform them into very rudimentary neurons, and then we can look at how those neurons function using all kinds of wonderful imaging technologies, and we can perturb those systems. You know, you can't go into a person's brain and change them. You can't do experiments like that, but we can study the neurons in a dish without ever harming the patient or the person.
So it seems like you're very encouraged with this approach, and certainly the $1.2 million grant to actually make some headway on this study.
We're very grateful to the Larry Hillblom Foundation, which is supporting this research.
Wow, well, I am super excited to hear when any results, when any findings are going to come out. Is there a timeline?
Yeah, the funding is, studying aging is a slow process because you have to look at the aging process itself. And so the Hillblom Foundation has provided 4 years of funding for this project. So we expect to see a great deal of information coming out in the first year and then building on that.
It's a slow process. I think that the statement there says a lot. All right, Professor, thank you so much for all the work you're doing. We know when these discoveries are made about aging and the brain and its relationship to dementia, it's going to come from Salk Institute. So keep up the great work.
Thank you, Ginger.